Hello everyone, I'm just setting up here waiting for Azza to join the conversation, and so I'm not going to say much until she arrives. Hello. I will just say maybe that there will be slides with questions in the presentation, and those questions have been set in our fonts. So when Azza asks me question, she asks with my fonts, and when I ask her question, it's in her fonts. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, it's okay. And those fonts, some of them we will talk about in detail, and some we will keep secret. So I think Azza is joining now. Just a second. Yes, it is.
Hello. Can you see me?
Yes.
Great. How are you? Good. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear like weird noises coming from my end?
No, all good.
Okay, because I have the fan on.
Okay, so should we get straight into it?
Yes, let's start. So hello everyone. Hi Bahia. Bahia is it's your day off today. You can I imagine her like having popcorn in her living room watching us.
Okay.
Hi Kalapi. I feel there's a lag. Yeah. So yeah, we can like it's going to be a conversation. I mean, we have questions prepared, of course, but we will. I mean, if there's anything you would like to ask me also on the fly, we can do that. Like veer off a bit if you want.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Do you see the
So my
slide?
first questions, yes. So I'm asking you. So I know that you have like a kind of a mixed background with your parents being from different countries. So I was wondering if you ever had this like time in your life where you had an identity crisis. I think it might happen to a lot of people with mixed backgrounds.
Yes. So my mom is French and my dad is from Tunisia. He came to France with his family, and basically I was born and raised in France, and my dad didn't teach me Arabic. And so this is kind of like the different places in the journey of my family. So my Tunisian family is from Sfax in Tunisia, and they moved to France, to the suburb of Paris called Créteil, passing through Marseille, and I was raised in this area in province called Le Luberon, which is a very sunny and beautiful place, but also a very racist place. And my identity was, sort of always questioned. And so that for sure created some confusion on my hands. But, at the end of the day, I think the identity crisis is, I think France has an identity crisis. I think all ex-colonial powers have an identity crisis, and they haven't be able to reinvent themselves, past these colonial identities, and therefore it makes it difficult for people like my family to to fit in,
To integrate,
in this idea of Frenchness. But if you look at history, really it makes sense that someone like me with the name I have is actually French. And so I guess that's my answer, I think.
But for example, you would your dad would speak in Arabic with you?
He used to hear occasionally, but not enough for me to learn.
To learn it, yeah.
Also because we were in the south of France, and my family was more around Paris. he wasn't in contact with them like on a daily basis, which like I think it would have been quite different if I was living close to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, it's very difficult when you live in one country and you speak another language. It's very difficult to teach your kids this language, even if you speak with them. Even if you speak with them Arabic the whole day, they're going to like reply in French, basically.
Yeah, and I think it's also, if you think about language as a metaphor for culture, then I think it also makes sense that if you arrive in a country that is hostile to your culture, that you're gonna keep languages at home, or you're gonna, lose it.
You'll be embarrassed or something.
To the other.
Definitely.
So what about your journey, Azza, from Lebanon to Spain, passing by the UK? I would like to know, like, over the last 10 years or so, it's been like.
Yeah, I think for me it was like kind of the opposite of what you lived. Like I lived I was born in Lebanon in a city called Tripoli, which is in the north of Lebanon. So it's more of a traditional city. And I lived there basically so I went to primary school and high school there. And so I stayed there until I was 18. Then I left to France to study graphic design. So in France, I did a private school, and it was really just focused on, it was called visual communication, and it was a 3-year program. And I remember like there, I actually don't remember we even had typography classes. I think we did like, work a bit with typography, but we didn't have really one class of typography like in other universities where you would have at least typography 101 in the 2nd or 3rd year or whatever. And so we were very I remember like really loving packaging design, and we would do lots of packaging design. And then when I went, the last year I had an internship in Holland at Tracy Design, who was really more focused into Arabic, because I felt that being in Paris, I was doing only Latin, and I felt this need to do more Arabic stuff. So I looked for this internship that really did focus more on Arabic typography and Arabic design. And I went there for 3 months. And then they proposed, like they hired me for after graduation. So I stayed 1 year there, and this is like really where I kind of a bit discovered what Arabic typography was. I had the chance to work a bit with Arabic type. And then I decided that I wanted really to go back to Lebanon and live there, because I really missed it. So I went there and got a job at an ad agency. And there I think I spent 1 year or 2, I don't remember, I think 1 year. And this is where I really realized that it's really not what I want to do. I really want to focus more on lettering and branding and more typography. So I quit the design agency, and then I went freelancing. And I started to like, of course, when you start freelancing, you don't have a lot of work. So I started to do some lettering and just, to practice like silly things like my name, my name of my city, etc., etc. And then I realized that I really wanted to like work really on this more and like have a deeper knowledge. So I decided to do type design masters, and at that time I only knew of Reading and The Hague, the KBK one, and I applied to Reading, and I went there. And after Reading actually I realized that it's not what I want to do. So I did freelancing again, graphic design. And then I went to Dalton Mag for 2 years to do really only solely type design. And this is where I think I learned really the most about type design. It was such a great experience in how they train you in doing everything from A to Z, like in design, engineering, and all aspects of type design. And afterwards, I left and I came to Spain, and now I'm freelancing. Like I'm doing half graphic and half type at the same time.
And that mag is also where we've met. We overlapped.
Yes.
I think a couple of years.
Couple of years, yeah, when I was there, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
How was your experience there? Do you think you learned like more than at school?
Sorry?
Do you think you learned more than at school, at university?
Oh yeah, I didn't learn much at school. I mean, I will go a bit more into details about that. But after school, I really didn't know how to draw type, you know, professionally, like type that you could actually sell. But yeah, Dalton Mag really was the gym. It's very good.
It's the real like you're doing actual really practical work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So my next question is, how did you go into type design, and how did you go, more specifically, how did you discover and wanted to do Arabic type design?
So I come from graphic design. I was studying graphic design first in Marseille, and then I moved to Paris to continue studying there. And when I moved to Paris, I actually moved to Créteil with my grandmother, and I lived there for 2 years in the very flat where my family arrived a few decades before. And I got to know her, you know, like we had conversations that we never had before. And she talked to me a lot about her memories and her experiences in Tunisia, and also especially when she arrived to France, that was like very challenging for her. And so we sort of like crossed memories and experiences. And I, like during, you know, this graphic design course, there was a few personal projects around this idea of, you know, editorial design and communication, identity, like on a, you know, more personal level. And I did a couple of projects sort of telling her story, the story of my family. And, you know, like going through this work and process, I realized that language and writing really played a key part in this idea of transmission and heritage. And it's interesting because my grandmother didn't go to school when she was a kid, so she speaks Tunisian, but she has no experience of writing in Arabic. And my dad not so much either, because you know, he arrived in France when he was young, so you know, writing in Arabic, he was like really at a sort of like school level,
basic level,
and then he didn't continue. And when in the late 90s, when my grandfather died, my grandmother started to take a French course, because she really wanted to write and learn, you know, French. And so there is all this idea of like transmission and language and script. So from that point, I really wanted to learn the scripts. And I also had a teacher at that time called Sébastien Morlighem, who was teaching a course that was basically sort of manual graphic design course, and it was all about drawing letters. And I had a lot of like joy attending his class, and he recommended me to go check Estienne School, where he was also teaching. And there was a course there that was basically articulating type design, typography, graphic design, but also language and linguistic, and like experimenting, linking all this discipline together. So I really liked what I saw, and I applied for the school, and I got in. And then something very strange happened. The year I started at STN, the school was the course was commissioned Arabic fonts, to match Latin for like a famous museum in Paris with an Islamic art department. And it was, I mean, it's very problematic in so many ways that they were asking the school to do this project instead of Nadine Shaheen, you know.
But so what year was this?
So I think it was 2006 or 2007, something like that. And
but it was like an exercise, or they would really take your typeface at the end?
No, it was a real thing, but
okay.
you know, it didn't go through like at the end, which I think is for the best, because you know it was very much too challenging for the level we had, or like we didn't have. But anyway, it was for me an amazing opportunity to have a first go at drawing Arabic letters. And Abdellah Akka, who's a Tunisian calligrapher, came a few times, and also Reza Abedini, who was coming by for an exhibition in Paris, and Huda Abifares, who had, you know, published the first typographic matchmaking book, like not so long before that. And so, yeah, the interesting thing is that basically Arabic type design and type design arrived in my life at the very same time. And another interesting thing that happened that year is that I got to do my Erasmus exchange in Type and Media in The Hague, KBK School, which is an amazing place to learn type design. And but I joined at the beginning of the second semester when the students are starting their personal project. So I also worked on a personal project, and I drew my first like Latin typeface that was very much inspired by the city and my experience there. And it got published as a Google font, like a very first generation Google font.
Oh, cool! I didn't know that. Okay.
It was for me, it was the first time I was really sort of experiencing designing letters to tell a story, which is like a very important theme in my work. And then in 2012, I joined Dalton Mag as a like junior type designer, because they were hiring, and I really wanted to learn more about type. And I joined the team who was doing Arabic fonts. It's a type studio that draw a lot of like multi-script typefaces. And so I started really doing the small jobs for like a while. And eventually, I think in 2013, I got to design my first custom Arabic font, which was Intel Clear. And it was an amazing opportunity, and it was also a great opportunity to sort of like redefine the approach of designing Arabic there. And I also got to work with Christian Sarkis, who was my consultant for this project, and I learned immensely from him. And then after Intel, like I stayed there a few years, and it was a few more of Arabic fonts matching Latin sans serif. And
Yeah, I think it's such a huge project as a first typeface, like to do Intel with like such a big client and so much responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. But there was something really good that happened, is that I had a lot of time to do it. I mean, a lot of time compared to like the usual time that you have when you work on a corporate environment for a corporate client. And I don't know, I think because it was a big family and the project like was going to last for a while. And and maybe because it was my first font as well, they also gave me, you know, we scheduled in a nice way that I had time. And somehow, even if it was the first project I did.
Yeah, they would give you time for
more
research and consultancy and all this. Yeah, that's great.
So next question is
Kalapi, sorry, Naïma, Kalapi is saying Brixton represents.
yes.
Brixton Market. Brixton Market. Oh my God. So many good restaurants there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so next question is, why did you choose Reading to study type design? And yeah, I was wondering if you will do the same choice today.
So I chose Reading because, like, as I said, like back in 2011, I didn't really know where to go basically to study type design, and Reading and The Hague were the most famous. So I thought I would apply to Reading because I thought that I think the UK, like living in the UK would be nicer than living in the Holland, given that I had lived in Holland before. So I wanted kind of a change. And also the nice thing about Reading, what I really liked was that they have you have to write, like, to do research at the end of the year and write a dissertation. And I was a bit interested more in this because I really knew nothing about Arabic basically, and I knew that this is what I wanted to research. So although Reading was like really more based on, like, they really focus on Latin design, Latin scripts, the Latin script, I knew that I wanted to do an Arabic there. So what's really nice there is that you start with really like very different, not, you don't like go really into type design immediately. We had stone cutting exercises. We had like amazing like teachers like Michael Twyman. I mean, everyone loved and still loves. I don't know if he's still teaching. No, I don't think so. But we really loved his like classes. He would show us collections, infinite collections of just like one theme, and we would like all be like really like mind blown by how he could collect, first of all these things, and his storytelling, I remember, was amazing. Like he would just, you know, tell us about books basically, but in a really amazing way. And for me this was so inspiring, and I think everyone who went to Reading was inspired by Michael Twyman, and of course by Gerard Unger, who was an amazing teacher. Not just in his knowledge, but also in his way. Like he has such a really amazing way of teaching. And I was always really attracted by these teachers who had this a very simple way of like teaching very complicated things. And for me, this was really the memories I have are of these two classes with Gerard and Michael Twyman. They were amazing. And then I remember like my first 3 months there, like going into type design, for me it was so difficult. I remember like listening to Jerry and not understanding anything he was saying, and like going back home and like, you know, thinking, what am I doing here? This is completely not expected. This is not what I was expecting. So this is where you start to you need to really work a lot on researching things during the year. It's Reading is not the masters there is not like a place where they would give you all the information. It's really not, they don't feed you like what you need to know. You have to really basically look for information.
Find out yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's in a way, of course, it's very effective way of learning. But I remember like being in a place where I was completely lost and not so many resources online back in the days about Arabic, and really like having this feeling of being lost. And yeah, it was a good and bad experience. But overall, I mean, of course, I really, now that I think about it, it's all positive. But I remember back then, like the really the stress and the feeling that I know nothing, you know. And would I do it again? I don't think so. I don't like to, you know, do you know, when you experience something for the second time.
Same choice today.
If I hadn't done it before, you mean?
Yeah, like in terms of, I guess because now there's a few more places where you can learn. Like if you would still go to Reading.
I think so, yeah. I mean, I cannot say no because Jerry would kill me. No, but I will, no, for sure. I will say I will say yes, because it's, I mean, I really learned a lot at the end of the year. And like during the year, of course, you're like, as I said, like not understanding anything and a bit confused. But with, you know, with the going back now and thinking about it, it was really, I really learned a lot just by the field trip and the field trips, the all the classes and all the feedbacks from amazing type designers. So yes, I would do it again, I think.
Okay.
So my question to you, can you talk about your collaborative work with Khot Foundation? I remember you showed me like really nice projects coming from this, and maybe you can show everyone how it started and what, if you have a final product, like what does it look like?
So in 2015, I was invited by Huda Abifares to join the third edition of a typographic matchmaking project. And it was actually Christian Sarkis who recommended me to her. So it's, you know, it's always interesting in one's journey how like one event leads to another one, or how, you know, one person introduced you to another, and then, you know, like things happen like that. So this edition of the matchmaking project was happening in the context of the Maghreb, and more specifically Morocco, where we have like 3 scripts that are official to the country. So Arabic, Latin, and Tifina for the Amazigh language. And the typographic matchmaking experience is like basically designer invited to collaborate on typefaces following a certain brief. So the one I just said. And I was teamed with Redouane Chetouane from Tétouan in Morocco. And there was also, it was an amazing encounter of people, like Laura Messeguer was there, Christian was there, that I finally met in real life. And like a lot of great friends, the start of great friendship. And so basically when for this project, we did a couple of study trips. So the first one was in Morocco, and the highlight was to see like original manuscript from Al-Qandusi in the Maghrebi style. And then we did another study trip in Spain. And I realized I missed one slide, but it's okay. So in Spain, we visited Alhambra in Granada. There is an amazing place with a lot of like Maghrebi letters, eye candies. And we also went to Cordoba to visit the Mezquita. So this is a very like abstract close-up on one corner of the Mezquita, where basically, so the Mezquita was a mosque, and when the conquistador came, instead of like destroying the mosque and build a church on top, they built a church within the mosque, which create this like visual accidents. And I think it's an interesting metaphor of like, you know, this layer of history and that come one after the other, and like how they visually match or don't match, that just live together, you know, like sort of forced in history. Another thing that really inspired us during this trip in Andalusia was that there was a few like vernacular signs with sort of like Arabized Latin letters, and also, you know, Latinized Arabic letters. And really, like, those letters were telling a story, you know, like, again, about like culture influences, and which is really like the story we wanted to tell with our project. So our family, the concept of our family was to have 3 styles. One that would be more like a skeleton, inspired by the, you know, the aesthetic of the Tifina. One style that will have a horizontal contrast, inspired by the the nature of the Arabic script, and one vertical contrast inspired by the Latin. And those three styles will apply to the three scripts. So this is how the family looked at first, and it creates like this strange texture. And it was also really a take on the idea of multi-script design, you know, because we really wanted to look at the script like on a horizontal level and see like if you draw all the script at the same time, you know, what can happen. And we are currently revisiting this project, like, you know, lockdown joy. So this is how it looks at the moment. We are also making all our outlines consistent, so we can, you know, play around with some like funny interpolations. So I can show you a little bit how it looks at the moment.
So how would you divide the work in this project, for example?
So at first we collaborated on the skeleton. And then Redouane is in charge of the vertical contrast, and I'm in charge of the horizontal contrast. And having like this same, you know, this same skeleton is also allowed us to, because like harmony was not really, you know, visual harmony was not really our concern. The idea was more like make a system that makes sense, and then kind of like play our our way, you know, each of us our own way with like our contrast. And yeah, this is the Latin. And I think like, because, you know, only because we draw Arabic and Latin at the same time, like we were able to really have fun also with the Latin form, like especially, you know, after doing so many Arabic matching Latin in a corporate environment where, you know, quite often if you work for a client that is based in the West, like it's very Latin driven, the multi-script family. So there is a Latin that is drawn, and then everything else has to match the Latin. So it's like, it's not really about carrying multiple identities, it's like matching the Latin. And I think, you know, we can take like there is no way this Latin would have looked like it looks if it wasn't in the context of matching a Maghrebi, basically. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. It's like for once, it's like the other way around.
Yeah, or just a different way, I guess.
Yeah, lots of love for this, lots of hearts and comments for this project. I think it looks great, and I think eventually it will be published with the book, or not, like the actual
yeah, absolutely. So there is a book that is almost ready, but not quite yet, that Huda is working on, and with the book we be released a set of free fonts. This updated version is like a post version, so like that would be the free version. Like this update will be released with future fonts whenever it's ready.
Okay, oh, that's nice.
So yeah, I wanted to go back to Reading a little bit and ask you about Sila, which is the typeface you designed for your diploma. And yeah, I was also wondering, like, because it hasn't been published, and I was wondering if you're still working on it, or if there are plans to release it, basically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, in Reading, as I said, like, you know, it's more based on Latin, but also they allow you, of course, to, and they encourage you actually to do Latin, another script, basically, anything that you would like. And so, of course, I decided to do an Arabic, but I knew nothing about it. And I remember, like, back then, you know, it was, I mean, it's not like it's such a long time ago, but back then we were still on Front Lab, like, you know, struggling with encoding. I remember like maybe spending 1 month just to do my encoding. It was like those days, and I
FontLab
knew
feels like
nothing.
a century ago now.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember like you know, researching online like how to do stuff, and there was basically nothing there. Like what saved me actually is a blog by Pascal Zorbi. I remember he had a blog on his website, like explaining, because he had done KBK a few years back, and he had explained on the blog like how to encode and do the OpenType features also of the Arabic, which back then, like, you know, I didn't even know that you had to do them. I thought it was like magical, it would work on its own. And so I remember spending so much time like reading this blog. And also I remember Khat had PDFs, like books, PDF books online on how like kind of introduction to type design. So these were kind of good resources, because in Reading, the library is amazing, and they have really lots of, for example, references of calligraphy and stuff. But if you want to go more into technical things, you either have to like ask someone, but then they kind of, same thing, they would push you into discover it yourself, or you would have to look it up for yourself from the beginning, or asking. So I started, of course, once I had kind of the project in mind, I wanted to do, it was 2012. I mean, web fonts were there, but there still weren't so many news website that had kind of, I would say, modern fonts, like to read as a reading font. So I decided that my typeface would be a web font for online websites, news website. And so I started to do, you know, some sketching. I, of course, looked at some calligraphy, although I'm not a calligrapher, but it's always good to look at proportions, of course, at the beginning. I'm also very bad sketcher, but I just sketch to get the concept, basically, not to get the final shape, you know. So I started doing this, and then I remember like with time, things started to, you know, it started to look like a typeface. Of course, it was horrible, like you know, really bad. The thick and thins were wrong, the proportions were wrong. But I mean, with feedback and from Reading, I kind of enhanced it. The problem is that today, I mean, I look at it, I even have it on my website, but it's not something I'm really proud of. But I am proud of the fact that I did this with this amount of time, this amount of knowledge, this amount of technology. So if I would want to publish it today, I would completely change it. Like it would be really another typeface. So I think I like to keep it this way, being a bit naive, like it's kind of a naive design. I'm really glad that it was one of the first typefaces in Reading where it would like have a Latin serif matched with a kind of a Naskh Arabic. So I'm kind of proud of having made these choices back at the time, and kind of really veered off what was being done back in 2000, and from 2008, 2010 until 2010, it was really horrible. Geometric types matching sans serifs. And for the web, I mean, I mean, it's the web font thing was like, I went into hinting and stuff. It was really beyond my knowledge back then, but that was really nice, because I had to research what hinting was, how web fonts work. What's Reading? Someone's asking. Reading is a university that has a master's in type design. Yeah, so actually after I graduated in 2012, I had two foundries that were kind of interested, but I had to finish all the design without being paid, of course. And I remember I was living like still in London there, so you know, you cannot really afford to spend 5 months on a typeface without income. So I was like, it's really difficult. I mean, everyone after their graduation has this problem that people are interested in it, but you need to finish it, but you don't have time. I mean, you have time, but you need money, so it's very, very difficult. But I know that, for example, Kalapi is now revisiting his typeface from 8 years ago.
Mm.
So I guess
Never too
it's
late.
never too late. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And would you consider release it as a free font maybe without like retouching it then?
It's really bad. I mean, I don't know.
I
Maybe
don't
I don't.
bad, but I also understand.
I mean, it's you know it's a student project. I really think of it as a student project. It's not
Yeah.
something that can be viable in real life. I mean, people would use it, I'm sure, but I mean, in my standards, I wouldn't use it.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't put it out.
Yeah. Sometimes I think about all those like student fonts who will never see the
Yeah,
light. Like I wonder
exactly.
what we could do with them.
Yeah. It's in another parallel universe. So the question is, so do you have, when you're working, do you always work in the same way, regardless of what the project is, or it really depends on the final project?
So I have I can talk about the commonalities of my process because I do so I set up my independent practice a bit more than a year ago, and I do type design, I do graphic design, I do Arabic, and I do Latin as well. And a project always starts in my mind. In general, like I think a lot. I think a lot, not necessarily a lot, but I think about it before to start sketching. And usually, when I start sketching, I already have an idea. Like I'm not someone who brainstorm with the pen that much. So there is always a sketching phase. I'm not a good sketcher either. Like this is one of my cleanest sketch, and it's not that. And
But this is what, like you did it first with a pencil, or it was really
yeah,
immediately with the marker?
what many steps before this one. And another thing that I always do in my process is that I have the luxury of a white wall in my studio room, and so I put things on the wall a lot, and I stare at it, and I do that several times in the process with sketches, with printouts. And I also often use words, so like because I'm really attached to this idea of like like the story of a project, of an identity or whatever I'm working on. So I often like this was sort of a visual brainstorm to find the right path, and I was like putting words, and it really helped me to like sort of define the story and define where I wanted to go. So I do quite a bit of that as well. And that's it really.
So do you sketch digitally sometimes?
Yeah, I do. I often like if I start on the computer, or like if at the very beginning I move from drawing to digital, I often do like a bunch of letters, and I will do a lot of different versions of like just a few of them, and and then like narrow down.
Yeah, I think our generation, it's really, we're more into digital sketches, because like I know I've never like had like sketched on a book and like scanned it and like traced it over. Like I never have final shapes on my sketching book. It's not possible for me. I don't have the patience.
There is a moment where I need to do it digitally to make it work.
To what? To make it work?
To make it work. Yeah, like you know, I make this, like, I fix it quicker on, you know, with the on the screen. That
Yeah, on the screen, exactly.
yeah.
How are we on time, Naïma?
I have no idea. I don't have the time with me.
Ah, you don't have the up
No,
top?
it doesn't display. What time is it?
It's midnight. No, wait, it's 47.
47.
So, yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to ask about your process, especially on like matching Arabic with Latin for Afra and Adele.
Okay, so basically I always start with like sketching digitally. I don't, like I said, I don't really do sketches on paper for these things. And the most important thing, I really, for the ideation to send to the client for approval, I do just like 4 letters and 5 letters, sorry. And I do usually the regular weight, and I try to match the weight. So the horizontal of the Arabic should match the vertical of the Latin, and vice versa. And so I start just, you know, doing these simple maneuvers, and then I do these 5 letters, but in all their forms, and I set it in text just to see if, well, if it's a typeface. And for both, actually, it was kind of, people would use them in a, like for long text. So I would just compare just to see the color, if it matches or not. And then I start to add, so if it's approved by the client, I start to add more weights, and I really stop the regular and really do more the extremes, like for example, a light and an extra bold, or thin and heavy, etc. And same thing, I try to match the weight of the Arabic and the general color. So at this stage, I'm still not into the features or anything. I'm really just doing basic visual stuff. Like, so the Arabic should kind of match just in color at first, and then the next step would be like to go really more into the letter and start to really tweak a bit to add the features of Adele or of Afra, etc. So, I mean, I'm saying this like in 2 minutes. Of course, this is a long project. It took maybe over 8 months, I would say. So it's not, I'm simplifying it, but of course there are many problems. Sometimes even if you take the same weight of Arabic, it doesn't fit. You need to make the Arabic usually like heavier or lighter or whatever. So it really depends on the Latin, how it is designed. So basically, yeah, I start really with a few letters. This is what I call the ideation concept. Once approved, I go more into details. And I'm really very like, I really support the idea of, especially for matching sans serif. It's really very important, of course, to match the weight and the color, the general color. And then for me, the features are really very, very secondary basis. I mean, I see a lot of people adding so many features to the Arabic to look like Latin. And at the end, it becomes super weird. So I'm really not a big fan of these things. I'm really more into the conceptual way of matching rather than really by shape, I would say.
Yeah, and I think it makes great sense to work. Maybe we take a couple more, and I don't know if we will have time for question from the audience, if there is any.
Maybe they can send us on once it's uploaded, they can send us the questions in the comments, I mean, of the video.
Yeah.
So the question is, what kind of typefaces do you think we need today in the Arab world?
I would say like a wide range of display typefaces. A lot of focus has been on text, and for good reason, of course. But yeah, I think there is a lot of room for display, and really for like designer to play with. I can show something that I'm working on at the moment. It's a project that was born during ATDB 2019 that I attended. And like, of course, when you look at lettering, there is, you know, such wide variety of shapes and rhythm, and it's really, you know, sort of like abundant. And when you go to type, there is, of course, a lot less. And this, like when during the program we visited the movie poster archive of Abu Jaoud, and yeah, I was really inspired by really this idea of like such a diversity of display variation. So I'm working on this like one weight Ruka inspired style. And the idea would be that once this style is designed to do a lot of variation from that same base, and it's very much work in progress.
It's a very nice concept, I think, to keep the same weight but different, like kind of decorations.
Yeah, really like a display family.
Yeah.
And about what kind of typefaces we need, I think also there is you know, there are styles that have very little coverage in type. I'm thinking about the Maghrebi, for example. I mean, of course, like over the last few years, there is like the typographic matchmaking project, and also there is the amazing Hoodoo typeface designed by Maha as well, but it's still just a few, you know, Maghrebi.
Yeah, compared to the other styles.
And I think it's a style that has amazing potential to be translated into type. This is a project that I did at Dalton Mag, and the idea was to do a very simplified Maghrebi to match sort of like grotesque Latin, and it's something that I really want to continue explore, this idea of like a grotesque Maghrebi. And yeah, one more thing I wanted to say about that is that I think more like great free fonts can also be a good thing. Like, I think free fonts really play you know, an important part in like the diffusion of a good type and good typography.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know, like, do you have what is your answer to that question, Azza?
I mean, I used to think that we need a lot of text fonts, much more, because the thing is that once you have a really good one, it gets like used and abused everywhere. So I used to think that we need more, but now that I see there's kind of a good variety, I would think we need more. I mean, we need in terms of design, we need more display fonts. But the problem with display fonts is that I mean, no one's going to buy them unless maybe they're free. Yeah, if they're free.
Yeah, so free.
But people would rather invest more on a text font. I think to use it in many in many designs.
Yeah.
So let's say we started at 0.5 maybe. Yeah.
We need more of everything, Christian is saying.
We need priorities.
Agreed. Come on, fun. More typefaces.
Yeah.
Okay, so 5 more minutes. I don't know if we have questions or if we continue.
Let's have questions if people want.
I don't see any on the. Okay, we keep going.
Kalapi has a question for you. So as an independent, I cannot see it. As an independent designer specializing in a writing system for which the market isn't very well developed, what are the top 3 challenges?
Um, the top three challenges. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, working independently, the thing is that you have, like, so it depends if we think about Arabic by itself, or if we think about like multi-script typefaces. So far, my experience since I've been independent is that you know, I when I draw Arabic during this time, it's been like for a custom project that already had the Latin. And so when this happens, I work through like other foundries, and I haven't so far worked on a custom typeface that is Arabic only. And so in my position, because I'm independent, but I don't have my own foundry, the challenge is that I don't have access to the client directly in those cases. I have to go through other foundries.
An agency, yeah.
Yeah. So that's one challenge. And then other two challenges, again, based on this like very same context, I would say that you have to like sort of defend a certain, you know, approach in your design, and that is not necessarily like the view of the foundry or the view of the client, and sort of like getting, you know, your design approach through can be quite challenging at time.
Definitely,
And yeah, those are my main two. Like, do you have one to add?
The main one would be that to convince the client that Din Arabic is not a good reference. This is basically my biggest nightmare. Like when clients send me this, like they want like this, and I like start writing an email like this big, try to explain why this is not a good reference, but they don't believe me because it's everywhere, so it must be good, you know.
Yeah.
So that's the one of my biggest problems, but we're getting there, I think. But it needs lots of effort and communication. So, but that's we do it one at a time.
Yeah, yeah.
Any
Yeah,
other
and
question?
so on following that question of Kalapi, I wanted to know a bit more about your experience as an independent designer.
I started quite early, like in 2009. And back then, like it was really crazy. I didn't have any clients, so I didn't know how to get them. And I started like I thought that if I would do a business card and have a website that I would get clients. But then what happened is that by word of mouth, people would recommend me, for example. And this is how I got most of the clients, from someone who knows someone who knows someone. And even until today, it's still the best way really to know to get work. I'm not going to. I mean, I can show. I'm showing old work, but just to show you my evolution, that I really wasn't doing so much Arabic as a freelancer. But then I really pushed myself to try to, you know, you need to get the clients in order to do that, because in Lebanon, Arabic is not really a first, like it's not a main script, so you have to really push to get to do projects in Arabic. And here I'm showing just a few examples of more recent work, but you can check my website if you want to see more. I'm not going to show my recent work. I just wanted to say that, yeah, freelancing has really negative and positive things. I think for me, the positive really takes it over, because otherwise I wouldn't be still doing it.
Yeah.
And for me, it's the freedom of creativity. How many?
20 seconds, 15 seconds.
No, No, we need to celebrate your birthday.
Right.
Wait, let me.
Really nice, a little too short, but
No, wait.
I goes, thank
I have a
you.
filter. Yeah.